This is Showcase, Faculty Exhibition 8 at the Jule Museum. Here's David Shanks talking about the process behind his work.
Well, the project was initiated by the Cazenovia Area Community Development Association, which is in Cazenovia, New York, outside of Syracuse, which is where I used to live and teach. There was a water wheel that was built in 1932. It was a kind of a Depression-era infrastructure project along the creek outside of Cazenovia. And the existing enclosure for this water wheel had fallen into disrepair, and the town was interested in preserving it. So they were looking for an architect to design a new enclosure, but they had a mission also to exhibit the infrastructure, so not just to preserve it, but to display it to the public. So the existing enclosure was concrete block, but it was falling apart, and you couldn't see the water wheel. Nobody could visit it. So that kind of became the sort of the program that I was given as an architect for how to preserve and exhibit this thing from 1932. Yeah, so those are both computer-generated images. Unfortunately, the project wasn't built, but the idea became to have the enclosure sort of slowly reveal this giant steel water wheel. So it's 18 feet in diameter, and it's all steel. Rather than just kind of have it be visible like it would be in a glass box or something, the idea was to use the architecture to introduce some drama into the experience of someone visiting it, where it's not visible when it's viewed kind of on the oblique, but then as the visitor gets closer and is able to look up at the water wheel, it kind of reveals itself. So the design is supposed to be a kind of an unveiling of this object which has been hidden for so long. So the way that we try to achieve that is by designing the enclosure with closely spaced vertical wood slats. So there's a kind of a louvering effect when it's viewed on the oblique, and you can only really see through it if you look head on. Yeah, so an important part of the design was to try to come up with a more environmentally sensitive way of addressing rot-resistant wood construction on this creek. So the most obvious thing to do would have been to use pressure-treated wood, which you can get at Home Depot, and it's kind of green. It's not so pretty. But we're looking for other methods. So got some students involved through internship programs and undergraduate research funding to look at other methods. So we did some experiments with shusugibon, which is a Japanese method of burning the outside face of wood to make it more durable. This is something that's been done in Japan for hundreds of years. We tried to soak iron nails in vinegar to make a solution that could be kind of painted on the wood, which is another kind of traditional method of basically inhibiting mold growth on the outside of wood. And what we eventually landed on was we found a native species of wood that's in the Adirondacks called tamarack, which I had never heard of before. But just in conversations with different people around the school, we learned of a mill that was producing lumber from this type of tree. And it was only a few miles from the project site, so it was great. And tamarack is similar to larch. It's naturally rot-resistant. It will eventually rot, but a lot slower than pine or other kinds of wood that you would get at the hardware store. So there was a fair amount of research about rot resistance that went into the project, and we like to get students involved with that process. it was very close to being built. We had all the construction drawings done. We had the budget all figured out. It was going to be partially prefabricated by students and partially built on site. So what we were going to do was to build the kind of the screen panels with those vertical wood slats. We were going to prefabricate those in 4 by 8 foot panels and then build the structure on site and basically tack up the panels to the structure on the site. So it was really in good shape, but political winds change and funding falls apart. So that's what happened. The politicians that were in charge of the funding, it changed during the design process, and the funding was removed. So that's just something that architects have to deal with, and I guess people in all different types of professions have to deal with that. As political winds change, projects change. But to have the chance to exhibit it, even if it didn't get built, I really appreciate that opportunity because I hope one day we will build the project.